Hey, good morning. It's a beautiful morning. I can feel fall. It's rad. I can feel it in the morning air, and what a great time of year. I wanted to share with you a distinction, and that's what I'm going to start calling these now. So if you like to follow the stuff that's kind of where I'm talking more about, personal health and philosophy and just love and kindness and spirituality and those things that are so important to me that are different than my hunting and my goats and all that I feel compelled to share. And so I'm gonna hashtag it distinctions, just calling it distinctions, just things that I notice, these noticings about deeper meanings as they relate to me, and just in sharing them, again with a foundation of love and kindness and gratitude, sending that out into the world, and hopefully it lands on somebody who needs it. So there it is. So this distinction that I just had was while I was picking up horse shit. And Trisha and I have different ways that we work in the pasture, and she likes to get every last little ounce. And I am like a time efficiency super nerd. And main reason is I'm time efficiency with things that either bring me joy or don't bring me joy. There's really like two categories. And there's also intrinsic joy. I mean, not all work is non-joyful. I mean, it brings me joy sometimes to work. But picking up horse shit is not that joyful. So I'm going to use time like that. And I remember that when she and I were discussing this, picking up goat poop and horse poop is a chore that we do every day. And the faster we make that happen, because picking up horse poop or goat poop doesn't bring me joy, the more time I have to do something else. And so I delineated that it took me about 15 minutes less to do chores the way I did it, and then Trisha did. Now she would argue that I'm probably exaggerating it, and I might be a little bit, but it's around 15 minutes. And so I extrapolated that forward. And if you figure based on 12 hours a day of calling that your waking hours, I earned 8 more days. 8 days in 1 year. 8 by saving 15 minutes with a chore that doesn't give me joy. Now, you can't tell me that that isn't valuable. Hanging out with my kids is for 8 straight days, or having a chance to sit down with people I love and have a real legit, deep, uninterrupted conversation about the deeper meanings and expression of gratitude, and or exploring a new passion, or spending time on a fly fishing river, or whatever fires you the fuck up. And doing that versus cleaning goat shit and knowing I have 8 more days to do it by just being more efficient, it's a worthy exercise for me. And so I'm going to continue to kind of evaluate in my daily life, what are my daily rituals that bring me joy, and my daily rituals that don't bring me joy, and how can I spend less time doing the ones that don't bring me joy? Can I invest myself less in the quality of that enterprise? Is there essentially kind of a good enough? Because if I can get to a good enough point where, and it's really beautiful how Trisha looks at things. Trisha looks at things that either a job's done right or it's not. And I love that philosophy because it does hold yourself accountable to like the quality of work you do, and having pride in it, and those sorts of things. And there is, my dad said, and I've said to my kids, any job that's worth doing is worth doing well. And I would agree. And I would also argue that a job done right or well, what's your definition of right and well? Is it a job done that allows for the times that are more meaningful with people you love, and the pursuit of personal growth and taking in of life around you? What is it that is for you that's more meaningful than the absolute completion of that task to its nth degree? Because I do find, and I'm not slack ass with work. It's not my thing, but I am always efficiency minded. And if I have a task that doing the last 10% perfectly, because I strive for perfection, because imperfection bugs the shit out of me, but doing the last 10% of that job usually takes like 40% of the time, versus telling myself, hey, I'm just building a goat feeder. Does it really need to be perfect? Is that important to the goats? Is it important to my ego when people come over? Is it important to its function? Well, those are legitimate evaluations that I can look at and go, okay, it is perfect. I do need it to be perfect. Or my personal sense of satisfaction is also important, and I'm going to acknowledge the need for having perfection uplift that. Whatever your thing is, but don't just get locked into this one statement like I have in my past of saying, any job is worth doing well, and a job done right is a job done right. Well, what's your definition of right? What's your definition of well? And what's your definition of what you need? I think it's about having introspection about those parts and then going, and then as a couple within relationship, we get to have these really cool honoring agreements. So because Trisha looks at it a little bit differently, to honor her and how she looks at it, I get to kind of pick my battles of sorts and say, well, in this context, to honor her, because she's not wrong, she's just thinking differently, then I can really honor that piece of her. And then we can do that task together with joy rather than resentment. Because that's where it goes for me. If you would just think the way I think, I'd be happy. And that's such an exercise in futility that I've gotten caught up so much in my life. It's so more beneficial to remain curious and grateful for the differences that show up, and then figuring out how those either can be honored and held within that relationship for us, or if it becomes a non-negotiable. And that's the really strange part about this. I want to speak about this in length later, so I'm just going to brush over it, because this is a huge distinction that I face constantly. And if I can remember, that'll be the next one. But it is that couples, myself, I get engaged in impasse, meaning I have an agenda to be over here. Let's just take goat poop, for example. I want to save 15 minutes, Trisha. I don't want you to clean up every last little pebble. It seems ridiculous. It's a cycle. More poop falls out the second we get done. Why would you spend those 15 minutes and sacrifice our 8 days? She's over here going, hey, a job well done, and being able to walk away from it and have it clean is worth the 15 minutes to me because it feels good inside of me. Neither of those positions are wrong. The problem is they counteract one another, and if we see that as adversarial, that this is wrong and this is right, or this is right and this is wrong, the problem is that to try to compromise ends up being like mutual sacrifice, and feels like it feels kind of icky of sorts. Oh, I'll sacrifice a little bit of me if you'll sacrifice a little bit of you, which actually works, and for evolved human beings can work and everything, but it always kind of leaves a clunk. What we've begun to do, because of a teacher that I have, and when I call people in my life teachers, this is just another brilliant man that I've been so lucky to interact with. His name's Clive, and Clive has been a life mentor for me for a super long time. And his third option is to use these MBOs, this most benevolent outcome. So he has a very ritualistic prayer where he says, God, we're coming across this particular circumstance and we're requesting your help. And we're requesting that there's this most benevolent outcome that will happen that will present a third alternative. I'm over here, she's over here. We know there's something else that's greater and better, and the answer to it can come through you. And that in that opening of that space, we put that out there for that request to come back. And he has evidence after evidence after evidence of that third alternative being presented. And I have now too that I've begun to implement it, and it's been so beautiful. So that's a distinction for today. Kind of went a direction I didn't think it would, but interesting. Hope you have a great day.